the NLP Institute of Arizona. This is a self-actualization meetup. And tonight's topic is on purposeful persuasion. We're going to cover a few things. This is mostly basic NLP and basic rapport skills. There's some significance to them, and we're going to get into some of that. And before we start, I wanted to talk a little bit about what rapport means. So, rapport in general is what Milton Erickson, who I just talked about with the hypnosis, the trance work, he said anything is possible in the presence of a good rapport. And what he meant by rapport was, in the rudimentary level, a matching of physical characteristics. What he meant by rapport on a slightly more esoteric level is a way of making a connection with the unconscious mind. So we use the term unconscious mind to describe the part of us that takes care of habits, that does learning, that runs our systems, the things that we're not consciously aware of. So we call this part the unconscious, although that there's no unconscious mind separate from mind in any way, just in varying degrees of awareness. So so that's something to be aware of. So what I wanted to say first is that if we're going to be persuasive, it's most important that we have an intention, that we know what our intention is. So if we have an intention, and if we set this out at the start, we know already what the intention is, then we don't have to worry a whole lot or get our conscious mind involved in some of the other steps that are going to take place. We can simply set the intention, and that's a communication with the part of us that's unconscious, the part of us that does the learning, the part of us that knows how to do, like, say, multiplication. Because arithmetic is a conscious mind thing. 1 plus 5 is 6. But when you get into multiplication, that's unconscious. That stuff's memorized. 6 times 6. Everybody knows the answer without using a process because it's memorized. It's stored in the unconscious mind. The answer to that equation is already there. So the answer to a lot of equations are already there. In fact, we already take in and interpret a lot more information than our conscious mind is aware of at any given point. So this is an important thing to do before we start, is set the intention, and it's most easily done by just simply thinking about the outcome. So if we picture the outcome that we want, then we know what our intention is. Now, I'd always suggest that you picture an outcome that is more spectacular than what you expect. So why would you want to picture an outcome that's only half of what you want? Or that's only right where you want? What if you only got halfway there? And you picked exactly what your minimum acceptable outcome would be to focus on as a possibility, and you only got halfway there. Much better to pick an outcome that is beyond what you expected. And A is for acuity, as you can see. So acuity. So acuity means sensory acuity. That means the ability to take in as much information as we can through our senses. So that's shifting our conscious mind a little bit from where it might normally be and heightening the sensitivity to what's around us. Now, this is important when we want to communicate, because communication is not just what I say. But if I take responsibility for what you hear, then I've got to really be aware of what's going on with you and where you're at in the first place. So it's important for me to have sensory acuity. Now, if I just figure my end of the communication is only what I say, I'm going to be only as effective as the people that are willing to and interested in listening to what I've got to say. But if I figure my communication is the response that I get from you, then I have to be prepared for a wider variety of situations to come out and get out, a wider variety of things to happen. So how do we heighten sensory acuity? Well, the easiest way that I know of is to use the the 5-point attention learning state, which is called learning state. It's called the 5 points of attention. It's called a variety of different things, and there's different things that are called learning state. But this is what I do. So I pick a place in the room that's beyond the wall, the furthest wall ahead of me, and I focus my attention there. And then I focus my attention out on the periphery of what of what I'm aware of. So I'm taking in what's beyond the furthest point that I can see and all the periphery. And then I focus my attention above my head and below my feet. So I'm aware of my body, I'm aware of its position in the room, and I'm aware of all of the things that happen in the room. And if you do this, you might notice that rather than to become less aware of things that happen in the room, you actually become more aware. So I'm aware of everyone's position in the room, everyone's physical position, but also every single movement that anybody makes in the room. So I take in all of what's around me. Now this is a simple way of heightening sensory acuity. This is a simple way of opening my conscious mind up to the information that's coming through my senses. And you might say, well, what's that got to do with persuasion? Well, it has everything to do with persuasion, because I have an intention, I have a desired outcome that I want. How will I know whether or not I'm getting there if I'm shut down to what the people that are listening to me, or the person that's listening to me, is receiving? I have to be aware of what they're getting. I have to be aware of whether or not they're with me or I'm losing them. I have to be able to modify what I'm doing, change it up, and try something different. So that's the first thing, A, sensory acuity. Now, this also involves being outward focused. So I cannot persuade anyone to do much of anything while I'm looking inside myself and analyzing who I am. If I'm analyzing who I am and what I want and what's going on, I'm going to be really ineffective at persuading anyone to do anything, because I can't even persuade myself then. I'm too busy guessing, second guessing, looking at myself, examining myself, wondering if I'm doing the right thing, if it's going all right. It's best to set the intention and then forget about that part and pay attention to the people that are in the room.